Hello, everyone, and welcome to Real Chat with Kat, a podcast dedicated to offering a growth mindset platform for us entrepreneurs, where we discuss everything from business, mindset, to life in general. I'm your host, Catherine Polsinelli, a business organizing powerhouse, personal development strategist, and owner of Agent Services Plus, a company focused on helping entrepreneurs just like you build, grow, and be courageous in their business. I'm so excited to have you with us today, so grab a cup of coffee or your favorite beverage and get ready to have some amazing conversations and fantastic takeaways. Let's jump right in. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today on this episode. I'm so excited to have you here with us and have my amazing guest, Miss Susan Butler. So, Susan, please tell us who you are, what it is that you do, and how you got here.
Well, hi. Thanks so much for having me on today. I truly appreciate it. And who I am Susan Butler. My company is My Financial Harmony. And I come from a background of over 30 years in the financial industry and I'm a certified financial planner. However, what I do now is I help empower women, financially frustrated women, to develop an new relationship, an empowering relationship around money and finances, so they can realize more clarity, success, prosperity, and financial freedom. So that's what I've evolved to. And actually, what evolved over the years was just working for so long with couples as a financial advisor. I realized that the women weren't necessarily as engaged. I mean, there aren't as many women financial advisors either, but women in general are not engaged around money and finance, and they let their husband do it. What happens if you get divorced, or, something happens and you are not up to speed, at least on what's been done or what's happening? It's like, It's scary. And I saw that. And so as I worked with people, I found more joy in actually coaching them up to understanding everything and being able to make some good decisions, not just rely on the advisor to make the decisions for them. And eventually I got certifications in life coaching and decided there's my passion, is to combine the two, the practical financial with the joy of life coaching and goals.
Oh, I love that. And I feel like that is such a big topic that needs to be out there more, especially now that we're starting to see more women stepping up into the entrepreneurial roles, or more head CEOs that are women. However, I do realize that, for a lot of us, especially in your older generations, women are the housekeepers, or they're the taker of the kids, right? And your husband is normally the one that does facilitate a lot of that. I mean, I have relatives that's still how it works with them, right? That she stays home and he does everything else. And I always question that of like, well, do you do your finances together? Oh no, it's fine, he takes care of it. I'm like, do you file your taxes? Oh no, it's fine, he takes care of it. And for someone like me, who's always been a single parent, for the majority of my kids' lives, even in my abusive relationship, I've always had to be the one to be in control of that. But I do realize that it is such a culture, I feel like, that women have kind of been categorized into.
And how did you end up having to learn about all the finances? Just by doing as you went along, or was there a mentor there to teach you everything? Because we don't teach it in the schools. We don't teach it anywhere.
Yeah, we do not. I think the only thing that I learned in school was how to balance a checkbook. At the time, I did kind of figure that out. But other than that, nothing. And what's interesting is, now that you're saying that, because I didn't have that direction and I didn't understand, but I took on the responsibility of an adult who didn't want to fulfill their needs. I got myself in a lot of trouble. I mean, I filed for bankruptcy at the age of 28 when I got out of my abusive relationship because I ran two credit cards and something else up and maxed it out because I didn't even understand what that meant. I didn't know what it meant to like have revolving credit, to understand what it meant to not use the whole percentage of your stuff, what you got charged every time that you know, cash advanced on your, like, I didn't know any of that. So when I was 28, I had to start over because I'd put myself in so much debt from not understanding that.
Yeah. And you learn, then you're learning the hard way by doing or by making the mistakes as you go along, and you never really know if you know enough, or it's like, but to be in that position where you are comfortable, with money and finances, and it's simple, it's clear, then you
Mm-hmm.
have such a feeling of empowerment when you're making decisions and when you're doing these different things with it. And so that is my goal, is to have other women feel that empowerment around, you don't have to be an expert in finances. You don't have to know everything a financial advisor knows or anything else, but there's certain things that can help you on the
Mm-hmm.
practical side. You can combine that with what you're trying to do on your life side, and help have the money serve your purpose.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I still know that there's things that I don't understand. I learned a lot of it when I got into real estate, when I started my entrepreneurial journey, because that's when you had to learn about, you know, lender fees and what credit repair was and how you could help your people get a better score. And like, so I really kind of dove into starting to understand a lot of that, because that wasn't something that, you know, we really talked about when I was a kid. You know, my parents, same thing. My mom always stayed home with the kids. My dad was the provider, and it just didn't really come up, right? And so having two teenage boys, like, that is a huge thing for me. Like, both of my kids got not credit cards, but I had them open a bank account when they were like 14 so that they could start putting money in it and not just spending it because it was in a pocket, you know, like really trying to teach them and make them understand. You know, my oldest one is looking at trying to up his credit score. So I've been trying to help with ways with that, and I'm explaining to him, like, there's a difference between just blowing your credit card and like using it for just gas, and have a revolving credit score that shows you know how to properly use it. Like, it really isn't something that's really taught anywhere. And my oldest one took personal finance. It was a half a credit class in high school. And well, he may have not paid attention completely, but I still don't feel like they really dive into explaining that and setting the youth up for the future. So I can't imagine some of the conversations that you've had with women around this topic, especially those that maybe are used to being the homemaker or not necessarily the breadwinner, and have someone that they do trust to financially take care of things.
Definitely. And I'll tell you one um, basic fact, even based on what you were just saying about the credit scores. Most
Mm-hmm.
women don't realize, if something happens to their spouse and their spouse is handling everything and the credits in their name and everything else, even though you have a card and you have all this, you do not inherit their cards or their credit score.
Mm-hmm.
You lose all of that and you're having to start over, versus there are ways of doing the planning along the way, even while you're married, that you can both have things established and both have the credit scores and both have access.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of a little basic knowledge and realizing that. And same with when, if you become a widow, what
Yeah.
happens? All of a sudden you have no idea. Am I set? Am I okay? What do I have to do? I haven't really paid much attention during our meetings with the financial advisor, or I didn't even go. I just
Mm-hmm.
let my husband go and take care of all of that. And all of a sudden you're just like at square one, and trying to learn everything from scratch, and scary.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. You know, I handled two probate cases when I was doing my real estate, and it was a whole fiasco because both of the people that passed away in both occasions didn't have any type of will. They had nothing, right? And so I had one that, you know, his wife was the survivor and she didn't have access to anything. And I felt for her because she had to fight all these battles and call all these people and try to prove all of these things to try to get access, to try to get the information, right? When she's like, I'm his wife, it shouldn't be this hard. And I'm like, oh, I understand, but you know, but it is like, and I didn't realize that until I started dealing with a couple of probates, the way that things work and how important it is to have things financially set up and having, you know, some type of will or a trust or something in place and having that information where it can be accessible, you know, when you pass, you know, to the right person. But it was definitely eye-opening for me to see that because, you know, I'm like, I got a good grip on my finances. I've been doing my stuff, you know, I'm figuring this stuff out. But it really was like, oh, well, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. And, you know, and any good financial advisor should, you know, have all that set up for you.
Mm-hmm.
But the difference, like in what I do, is to help, I through coaching, you know, help you develop that empowering relationship yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That, you know, yes, you have that financial advisor to do the certain investments and everything. You don't want to have to know about every stock and bond and whatever else is out there and all of that. But you have your plan of what you're trying to do, and you can help make the decisions of what you want that financial advisor to do for you.
Mm-hmm.
And it just makes such a difference. I can tell you, like, you know, since we're kind of on that subject of, you know, when you lose somebody or whatever, but one of my clients, she was going through divorce and she hired me in the middle of the arbitration.
Mm.
And because she'd been going through the arbitration meetings just crying, she knew absolutely nothing about what her husband or the arbitrator were talking about and anything to do with the money or finances. She had completely trusted and relied on her husband to do everything. And unfortunately, he
Mm-hmm.
put everything in his name.
Oh,
And
goodness.
so she was kind of left high and dry. Well, they were still in arbitration. So she and I did some quick meetings up front, and I brought her up to speed and I got all the information of what was happening and helped her to go back to the arbitration, ask for certain documents, ask for certain proof of things,
Mm-hmm.
and, you know, suddenly become engaged. And they were a little surprised because all of a sudden she went from crying and saying nothing
Yeah.
to, okay, I want to see this, this, and this. And then she'd bring that back to me. I could do the analysis for her and send her back with what to say next. By the time we got to the end of this arbitration, she knew what she was getting. She understood it. She was satisfied with the outcome and did not feel like, you know, she was being hung out to dry or cheated or whatever. Because then we
Yeah.
also had set a plan of what we were going to have to work on to reestablish her
Yeah.
and start her independence.
Oh, I absolutely love that. And that's such
So,
a sense of empowerment.
yeah, I mean, so going, you know, I'd say that that's like an urgency almost for my kind of work, as if there's
Mm-hmm.
some major event that's happened, a divorce or widowed or, you know, something like that that's caused major um you know, trauma. Then that's the time that it's really important to get this information. But
Yeah.
hopefully, you know, you get it in advance and, you know, go through learning some of this so that it doesn't catch you in a trauma.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Now, when you're working with your clients too, do you tend to find that you end up having to also focus on limiting beliefs around money and kind of
Oh,
that situation as well? Can you give me some details? I saw that face.
that is a major part of the actual coaching.
Yeah.
You know, you have the practical side. In
Mm-hmm.
my coaching, in my coaching program, I actually don't spend a lot of time on the practical side because that, you know, you want the certain basic knowledge and everything, but a lot of what can really get you empowered is the mindset, is your
Mm-hmm.
beliefs around money and finances. I mean, if you believe that all rich people are greedy, or you have to work super hard to make more money, or I was not brought up in the social society of being able to make a lot of money. I'm a blue collar worker or whatever. If you
Mm-hmm.
have those beliefs, then it's going to keep, it's going to stay the same. Basically,
Yeah.
you have to change those beliefs, but in order to change the beliefs, you have to first be aware of what beliefs you have, which a lot of people don't
Mm,
know. And we go
yep.
through a whole process to become aware of these subconscious hidden beliefs and negative paradigms and habits that you formed since you were 3 years old. I mean,
Yeah.
you heard your parents say, "Oh, we can't afford to do that," or "We don't have the money for this," or "We need to save more to, go on this vacation," or
Mm-hmm.
you heard all these things as a little kid, and they weren't thinking about what you were taking in, but you
Yeah.
heard all this, and then you heard more things from teachers as you got older, from society, from people around you, the friends you kept.
Mm-hmm.
All of this just reinforced and ingrained all of this in you, and so your beliefs are hardcore, whether you're aware of them or not. They are ingrained in you, and they can affect completely how your results are. If you look at your current results, that will tell you how your thinking has been in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to change your results, it starts with changing your thoughts, how you think, what's your perception of different events. You can take a horrible event, say a forest fire comes through and burns down all these houses. You have one person that's interviewed that is just in tears and they've lost everything, and it's horrible. And you have another person that's interviewed that is just so grateful because everybody's alive and safe and the pets got out. It's the same event, the same
Yeah.
loss, but two different perspectives.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and that makes total sense. And it really does come down to how you do perceive things and making that change. And, to add to that, when you're dealing with people and you're working with them to get to the point to recognize where those limiting beliefs are or what those limiting beliefs are, can you give us a little insight on how you kind of help people get to that point of even realizing it? Because I realize that, people that probably come to you, it's probably not necessarily the first thing in their mind. Oh, I have money issues with the way I think about it, right? They're coming to you for like, I need this financial advice. I need this. Can you help me with this? And I feel like it probably turns in more to, okay, well, you also have this that you need to work on. So can you give me a tidbit of ways that someone could start that process to start realizing that there may be a limiting belief that's holding them back at that in that specific area?
Definitely. A lot of it has to do with the way I ask questions and
Mm,
drill down kind of, and it kind of each drill down of the question kind of brings up more. You know, what what makes you feel that way, or how does that make you feel?
mm,
Um, what would happen if you didn't have this barrier? And it drills down. The more you drill down, because on the surface, they're not going to be able to answer a lot of their um, negative beliefs.
yeah.
It does require a lot of, like questioning, thinking about things, and drilling down and really opening up um, down into the subconscious. Because, initially when we answer questions or when we react to anything, we're reacting in the conscious.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And it's really easy for your mind to give you a generalized answer or my favorite, I don't know. That's I always feel like that's the big one, right? And what you're saying makes so much sense. And I talk about this a lot with people as well, is really being able to hone in on your thoughts and notice them. Because I also feel like when you are in certain situations, you have feelings about them, right? There's an emotion that comes up. So if you have, for instance, a friend that maybe is really well off, right? Or you've been scrolling through Facebook and there's someone you follow and they're talking about all this stuff that they're doing and things they can afford, blah, 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 right? If you have the feeling when you see things like that, that's almost like a twinge, right? Like a, ugh, like a, or I wish I had that, or, you know, something along those lines. I feel like that's a really good indicator as well to let you know that there's probably something you need to have a conversation about, or you should deepen your questions on and really look into, because it's very easy, like you said, on that surface level to just answer the question and be like, no, I'm fine, I'm good. But when you really attach that emotion to it, which I do think that asking more questions and continuing to dive deeper really hits that emotion. And that's when it's like, oh, yeah.
Well, that and those emotions are all the filters that you're actually viewing life through.
Mm,
If you stop and ask the question, especially if something like was a bad experience or a horrible experience or something, you just say, is this the truth? Or even when you come up with a belief, is this the truth or is this my belief based on my filters and how I see things? Is it black and white that there's actually, you can say this is the truth?
mm-hmm.
Or, that's part of it. You can question that. And then you start realizing how many things are truly your beliefs.
Yeah. Oh, I love that one. That is, I have actually used that before, and I absolutely love that, to just ask if it is truth. Because, like you were saying, when you're dealing with the subconscious, we have so many things that are ingrained in us from way back when that we don't even realize, and we just spit it out. It's kind of like when your parents tell you, like, what's one that ever, oh, you can't have the light on inside the car when you're driving down the road because it's illegal. Right. And like, so you kind of take that and you start telling your kids, you don't even realize it's not even really true. It's just, it's what your parents told you, but it's this ingrained truth that you harnessed and took a hold of, and you made it your own belief. And so I love that, by asking yourself, like, is this the actual truth, or is this just something I'm believing? And I think that sometimes doing that kind of, for me at least, sometimes it brings up a specific era in my life or a specific incident. And I'm like, oh, no, that's not true. Yep, that came from that. I remember doing that. And then that's taken a lot of work, right, to be able to really hone in and listen to what's coming through, because there's a lot of chatter, let me tell you, in my brain. But
Oh, everybody. Unfortunately, it's very hard to turn that chatter off, especially if especially the negative chatter. For some reason, it's so much easier to complain about something than it is
so
to do
much.
something about it. And
Yeah.
so our negative chatter is constant. And this is where we have a problem with our own self-worth, our own self-confidence. We do it to
Mm-hmm.
ourselves. We self-sabotage.
Yeah.
And what we really don't realize is, even though you may be, kind of living right now in your conscious, it's really your subconscious that runs your life and makes your decisions. And that's why it's
Mm-hmm.
important to dive in and dig down and see truly what are those beliefs that have been in there for so many years that I just don't even realize it anymore. And
Yeah.
once you become aware of those, then you can do exercises to make the changes.
Yeah. Yeah. Start small and then build on top of it. So now, when you're dealing with women, is there anything that you find is kind of a commonality that tends to kind of constantly come up that you deal with?
um I started by doing a lot of one-on-one work at the
Mm-hmm.
beginning, and I wanted to do a group program. But in order to do that, I had to figure out, okay, what's kind of in common, what
Mm-hmm.
doesn't, what would be common things for everybody to work on that wouldn't necessarily require them to divulge, personal financial
Yeah.
things that they didn't want to divulge in a group setting. And so, it took a while, and then I finally put it all together, and I did end up coming up with a group program that would go through these foundational basics, both the practical and the life side, the mindset, vision,
Mm-hmm.
um, taking you basically through all the steps, all the foundations of what my entire coaching program is about.
Mm-hmm.
And so it starts with being able to imagine, dream, what would you love? It's not, women have spent their whole lives, taking care of somebody else, nurturing others. When it comes to trying to actually come up with what would I love, that's actually a very hard thing to bring out in many women.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a goal. This is not goals. Goals are things that you know how to get to. A dream is something that would be fabulous, but you don't know how to get there yet or how you'd ever get there. And so that's where I start with women is getting them to think outside the box and start thinking, what would you love? And
Mm-hmm.
amazingly enough, when you follow through these practices that I give you and everything, some things start to happen and you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't expect anything like this, for years. But just because you've been thinking about it, you've kind of gotten on that frequency of thinking about that positive thing,
Mm-hmm.
and it ingrains into your body, and all of a sudden certain things start happening and you start being open to more ideas, more possibilities coming into you because you're
Yeah.
thinking at that level. Then we go into the mindset and, these paradigms, these negative beliefs, the things that have been ingrained into you from the beginning. And that's followed by how to make sure you're living your life now and not always waiting for the perfect time in
Mm.
life. Because you wait, you may miss.
Yeah,
And so
definitely.
that's important. And then, you get to some of the fun practical stuff. It's like debt. What is good debt versus bad debt?
Ooh.
How can you leverage good debt and make it work for you? I mean, you wouldn't be able to get a house if you didn't have the ability to have the debt. At
Oh,
least
yeah,
most
very
people.
true.
Most people.
Yeah.
Some people can pay cash, but for the most part, if you had to wait until you had the money to buy a house, you'd probably never get it.
Mm-hmm.
That can be a good debt because that got you the house and allows you to live in it all these years while you're paying for it.
Yeah.
Same with the car. There's a lot of things, a vacation that you really want to go on. There's a lot of good debts that, it's just how you use it, what you do with it. And so it's just another interesting point. And so yeah, there's a lot of that in common with everybody. And then I do one whole module just on a whole practical side that you were talking about earlier, making sure you have the will, the estate planning, the insurances that you need, and all of that kind of stuff. I do one
Yeah.
module on that.
Oh, I love that because I think that's such an important part. While I really do think that, like you were saying, starting with that mindset piece and understanding and breaking that down is so important. And especially with women, because we do tend to be people pleasers. We do tend to want to take care of everyone. A lot of us were brought up that way. We had siblings we cared for, or parents that we cared for, or, in my case, I became a mom very young. So my entire life has been evolved around my kids and taking care of them and other people. And so there wasn't really time for me, or at least I didn't know that there was time for me, right? I always put myself in the back burner. I was like, it's fine. I got to take a bath. Woohoo, right? Uh, that was my quiet time. And I'm not saying to everybody out there, I know that there are men that way as well that do feel this, as well, where they feel like they are the people pleaser, or they have always had someone take care of them. And so they aren't sure which direction to go. So, this doesn't mean that it only applies to women, but it does apply to those that do face those people pleasing roles and they have let other people take charge, or they've put their trust in someone else so much that they're almost blind to the possibility of something else. And it doesn't necessarily mean, cheating or they're going to do you wrong, but like things happen, right? Things that are out of our control that we have to be prepared for. It doesn't mean that you have to have a doomsday um, idea around it, but at least being aware and being better prepared can definitely help you through that hardship versus trying to learn those lessons while you're in those hardships.
Yeah. I mean, what most people don't realize too is you are stronger than any circumstance, situation, or event that happens in your life. And, everything that happens, you learn from.
Mm-hmm.
You can't, or you have the potential to learn from it
Yeah.
if you if you don't get caught up in it and
Yeah.
let it victimize you.
Yeah,
Um,
that's definitely a big thing. And that comes back to that perspective, like you were saying.
mhm. Yeah. So anyway, I just love doing this work and being able to help the women to see a lot of this. It's just it's exciting and also, a big thing for me is, where it separates me from the financial, strictly from the financial industry is when
Yeah.
I came to this, realizing that coaching was what I really wanted to do and how it evolved. I ended up having to give up all of my licenses that I had, that I'd
Oh,
worked
wow.
years for. And, all my selling licenses for the stocks, the bonds, all the securities, everything else, because it conflicted with coaching. And, the SEC has all these strict rules and everything. And it's just like crazy.
Hmm.
And so it was exciting. Well, it wasn't exciting, it was scary at first. but I mean, once I realized that those licenses were for selling products and that wasn't my passion, it was
Mm.
like, oh my gosh, this weight just lifted off. And I realized, okay, I'm free. I
Yeah.
can now coach people and say what I need to say without worrying about whether the SEC likes it or not.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to sell anybody anything. So they can relax and be comfortable with that fact that I'm not biased toward them or
Yeah.
toward what they should be doing.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense because I know that a lot of people, I feel like that's another reason why they shut down is because they already feel like somebody's going to sell them something, right? I know even conversations that I've had with people when I do like a discovery call, like you can sometimes just see them like wince, like they know it's coming, right? And I try to leave that space open to, if you'd like to continue the conversation, great. If not, you enjoyed your time, like, do you have any other questions? And just leave it open for them to give them that option. But I do realize that especially in your line of work, what you were doing, how that could be a huge conflict. And also, be almost like an inside battle, right? Because you know what you want to do and how you can help them, but then you also have X, Y, and Z on this other side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it was a real freedom. And, I hadn't considered that before. I kept
Mm-hmm.
fighting it, saying, no, I can't do that because of my licenses and all that. And this one of the coaches that helped convince me to get into coaching too, that's where my calling was, she was the one that suddenly suggested, what if you gave up your licenses? What do you need them for? And I was
Mm.
just like, what? Are you kidding?
Yeah, no, I could definitely see that. That would be
Oh,
totally, that would freak me out. But like you said, it also opened up the doors for you to get into your passion. And it was still a learning experience, right? You learned so much. And because of that, now you get to do what you love and you have the knowledge and the skill behind you to be able to help people even better than, just hiring a financial person or just hiring a coach that kind of dabbles in the financial realm. So I absolutely love that. To me, that makes a ton of sense. Now, when you're dealing with people and doing the whole coaching and things like that, then if somebody needs, let's say, the additional help or they need the planning or they're ready to start a will or a trust or something like that, then do you have your own connections that you send them to if they're interested in to kind of keep them going down that path? Or how does that look? Do you set up a plan of action for them so that they continue where you guys left off?
definitely. I've got my network of people, but then I just work if they already have somebody too. I am very open to working with them. And
Oh,
so
I love
whether,
that.
they have a CPA, attorney, financial advisor, I love getting referrals from those people too, as they're doing the work um, behind the scenes for the client. I've
Mm-hmm.
had them, that's actually where I get most of my referrals. They send them to me to really help get an understanding and how they can grow, because a lot of women are just like stuck, as I'll paraphrase on with Einstein, if you keep doing the same thing over and over again expecting different results, that's insanity, definition of
Yeah.
insanity. And so you've got to make the changes and do something to get unstuck and make more money. But yeah, I work with all of those advisors, and so then I can make the suggestions, I can have the conversation in the background with the advisors and send the client back to their own advisors, or
Mm-hmm.
if they don't have any, I can suggest some. And, then they can do that work behind the scenes that needs to be done, sign the papers, do all of that
Yeah,
that I
yeah.
no
And I
longer
love
do.
that. And I love that you work beside them because to me, that's building that community that we all need as well. And I think that sometimes we forget that that's okay, or especially those that, are more in the corporate side of things and what they do, they forget that, like, other people could help, where you could work side by side and run parallel, not that you're going to overtake what they do and they can't overtake what you do. It's the same thing, like those that are in therapy. I had a licensed social worker that loves coaching, but she loves therapy. And so they have additional modalities and things within their office where they work together so that if their client needs that additional space, that additional love, that additional support, they can still have it, and everyone works together, which I really feel like we need a lot more of in
You
this
know,
world.
I'll tell you, I had somebody recently give me a title that I had never even considered before, but I kind of like it. But it was financial therapist.
Oh,
And
I like
I was,
that.
yeah, I was like, okay, I hadn't really considered that before, but I guess in a way.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, because and if you think about, the attorney, the CPA, the financial advisor, they each have their corridors of what
Yep.
they're working on with you, their specialties,
Yeah.
but they're not necessarily overlapping into the other areas
Mm-hmm.
or considering those. Like, your financial advisor, they want to make as much money as they can for you and then tell you which account to pull from when you need money or things like that. But as
Mm-hmm.
far as using money as an energy, as a tool toward your life plan and your life goals and everything, that's something that comes from you. And being able to tie all of these different professionals together. And that's, by my working with each of these professionals in addition to my work, then it helps bring it all together. And that's, thus the harmony that I strive for.
Yeah, which I absolutely love. And it makes so much sense. I mean, it's just like when you go to a doctor, you go to your primary care, but they can only do so much. And if they don't work along with the specialist, right, then you're not going to get the care that you need. And I do think that a lot of people forget that because people tend to put their trust in whoever their financial advisor is or their attorney or whatever. And they're like, oh, it's okay. They'll figure it out. They'll let me know. Right. Your CPA. And it's like, no, they're niched in a specific area. And while they might be able to generally give you information as a whole, you still need to be aware and have the understanding of where their capacity lies so that you aren't, again, putting all of your trust in someone else, hoping that they're going to do right by you and just blindly say, oh, okay, well, that makes sense.
Right, right. And there's that line between where you feel like you need to know everything versus knowing what you need to know just to feel empowered.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I think I fought with that for like the longest time because I would think that a lot of people do, right? Where we do feel like we need to know it all or nobody's going to listen to us. But you do have to get to this point of letting go of that ego and being like, okay, I'm okay with asking questions. I'm okay understanding this. This is a little bit above my head. Probably doesn't make any sense if I do understand it or not. So cool. I'll let you take that. Right. It's kind of like delegating out your work or your tasks or something at your job. If you try to be the doer of all things, you're going to find yourself more extremely thin versus saying, okay, I know I'm good at this. I know I can understand this very shallowly, right? But I'm going to let you continue and just be able to ask questions. But I do think that's a difference between accepting where you are great at and still having the power to ask questions to understand without allowing the ego to be like, I need to know it all.
But let alone not only just what you're good at, but what do you enjoy doing? What is your passion? What do you
Yeah.
really want to be doing? And what can I delegate so that I can do more of that?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. But I do think, like you say, it is so important for everyone to have an understanding of where they are at financially, where they are going, where they want to be, and what systems they do have their money in versus someone else handling it all for them.
or handling the pieces,
Yeah.
not tying it together.
Yeah. Yeah. And then that puzzle does not fit the way it's supposed to, know. But no, I absolutely love it. And I also love that you do tie in the mindset piece, because that is something that especially those in the corporate world, nothing against, anybody like that, but a lot of the times you aren't taught that side of things. And sometimes it takes listening to the way that people are wording things and listening to the statements they're making to be able to say, oh, okay, I think we need to back up before we start doing this planning, because it sounds like you may have, something else deeper within there. Because I mean, you can do all of that, right? But there's still a possibility that it doesn't align, or it's going to eventually fall apart, because there is still that subconscious piece to it that has not been touched on.
Right. And also, when people hear a financial person start talking about your mindset and
Yeah.
your thinking and all of this, they're kind of like going, whoa, where is she coming from here? Because, we're naturally analytical.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why, I enjoyed with the numbers and working with things. But what got me hooked was, the more I started studying this, there is scientific backing to how all of this works, to the mind body
Yes.
connection, to the mindset, and to the different frequencies of positive thinking versus negative thinking, and being a victim
Mm-hmm.
versus being empowered. And there is scientific backing. And I have done some of the study of that just to satisfy my analytical side before I kept going into all of this. And
Yes.
so I am convinced. I've seen it work for me. I've seen it work for other people that I've now coached on it. And it's not woo woo and it's not out there. It is an important part that is not dealt with.
Mm-hmm.
And, especially if you go to your experts, you think your CPA or your attorney or your financial advisor are going to talk to you about your mindset around money or your beliefs.
Yeah.
And it will have a huge effect on your results,
Mm-hmm.
your success and prosperity.
Yeah.
Not just how much money you're making in the market or whatever, but your personal success and prosperity. And that
Yeah.
is affected tremendously by the mindset and the subconscious.
Yeah, definitely. I 100% agree with that. And I am a very analytical, very logical person. It does have to make sense. So I agree with you. I had to do a lot of deep diving and, learn some about the NLP, so the neuro linguistic programming, and, your prefrontal cortex. I totally butchered that. But understanding all of those pieces that play a part. And when you really do look at that and you put it together and you do look at the science behind it makes so much sense. But I think because it's talked on such a high level, and there are so many people that just trust in it, that people like us, we are just like confused. I know I was for a really long time, when I heard conversations about that, or changing your mindset, or I was like, what? I don't. But right, you can, you're right, you can read up on it. You can read about how you can actually detach the neurons in your brain and reattach them to new neurons to change your habits, your subconscious thinking. Like, it literally can be done, which is something I found so fascinating, because it does tie it down to the ground. I feel like for a lot of us, I mean, most of us are raised in a very logical sense, and we do have to kind of fight that side of our brain a lot. And so yeah, I agree with you. It's not all as woo woo as people sound. It's just, some communities talk about it more on that level because they fully envelop and they fully trust, right? And so it's not explained, whereas people like us are like, okay, wait a minute, time out. Just Google this real quick.
Yeah. And what you're talking about is neuroplasticity, and it can happen
Yes.
at any age. People in their 90s can still rewire themselves
Mm-hmm.
with how they're thinking and with how, get different results. So
Yeah.
we can, the neuroplasticity, we can make change consciously and get it to go into our subconscious, the positive change, at any age. So you can never have to say, oh, it's too late, I'm already, I'm past all this. I mean, there's I could tell you stories of women in their 80s and 90s that have done phenomenal things because of suddenly discovering all of this late in life and making phenomenal changes.
Yeah, it really is amazing. Like, if you guys get a chance to check it out, it
Yeah.
really is. You can go down the rabbit hole really quick, but it is really interesting when you really start to understand, and you start to learn how the brain works, and you realize that the brain is a mechanic that is here to keep the rest of us alive, right? Just like your engine is supposed to run your car. Your engine is what keeps your car alive, and it's supposed to do its job. And your brain works the same way. And when you start understanding that, then it's like, oh, okay, like that makes sense. Oh, okay, I understand why this wording would actually not connect me with that, right? It's so interesting. Yeah, I think that's where I got sucked in. Definitely, the neuroplasticity was really fascinating. I was like, I can do what?
Yeah, and you don't have to go in and do all this research to prove all this. You can trust
Yeah.
that, those of us that are analytical freaks or whatever have done a lot of this, and we do see that it works, and we're just here to help you based on this knowledge.
Yes, definitely. I love these kinds of conversations. It lights me up, and I love to see people that really have found their passion and they're doing so much good for so many people and bringing these things together that we hate to say desperately, but we desperately need, right? There needs to be a change. There needs to be a different cultural understanding. And for those that aren't in that, we do need help on that other side of getting us to where we want to be. So thank you, Susan, so much for all of your information and everything that you've brought to the table today. I love this, especially when it comes to money, because I know that's something I have struggled with for a really long time. So please, then, before we end, tell us, do you happen to have a quote or a piece of advice or positivity that you would like to leave with the audience today?
Piece of positivity, I would say, and we kind of touched on it at the very end there, based on the neuroplasticity,
Yeah.
is that you can make change at any age. Your possibilities are endless, they're
Mm,
limitless. And most people don't realize that they've placed these, limit. That's why they're called limiting beliefs.
yeah.
We're in a box, we're limited. No, you can go outside the box. I can help you do that. And your possibilities are what are so exciting and endless, and things you've never thought of that you can do and accomplish.
Yeah.
And the money that you can bring in, and it's all very exciting, and that's the excitement that I get when I see people's. I look for what possibilities they have in them, and especially what they haven't found yet, and then to help them see the same thing I'm seeing.
Yes, yes, that is definitely one of my favorites. One of my favorite parts is picking that out and being like, here it is. Putting it right in front of them. Oh gosh, I love that. And Susan, please, I know that you have a freebie for our audience. So please share that and where everybody can connect with you, how they can be in your world, how they can find you online.
Okay. The freebie is called Feminine Financial Formula, and it runs through some 5 basic steps of that. And that link will be in the notes for this podcast. And you can also reach me either by email, which is real simple. My name, Susan.Butler at myfinancialharmony.com. You can direct message me on Facebook I'm under Susan Butler. And I also do have a My Financial Harmony page, so that's fine too. And my website, which is currently under construction but will be reopened very soon, is myfinancialharmony.com.
I love that. I love that, my financial harmony. And I told you that when we first started talking, like I just think music was just fills my heart. I love it. So thank you so much, Susan, for everything. You guys definitely make sure that you grab that freebie. That's going to be in the show notes with all the information. And be sure to share your comments. Let us know what your takeaways were. And if you have questions financially, definitely reach out to Susan to get some takeaways and some information. So Susan, thank you so much for being a part of
Thank
today's
you, Kat.
podcast. Yes, ma'am. And to everybody else that's out there, I hope you guys are writing these things down. And until next time, don't forget, do one thing positive for someone each and every day and see the difference that it makes in your life. So until next time, have a fantastic day.
Hello again, and thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. If you absolutely loved what you heard, please be sure to subscribe, share, and leave a review so we can keep the good stuff rolling. Got something you'd love to hear us discuss? Then be sure to message me on social media and let's work together to spread even more amazing content. And if you haven't yet connected with me on social media, be sure to follow along at Agent Services Plus. I'm so excited to connect with you on the next episode, and until next time, be sure to find things that help you learn, grow, and be inspired.